Hi, my name is Azalea and you're watching my YouTube channel, Waycrunchy. Today I'm talking about how I remained a stay-at-home mom through a big old divorce and then years as a single mother. I stayed at home. How did I do that? Today I'm sharing a rundown story, basically focusing on the financial end of it. But if you want to see the panic attacks I had in the middle of the night while I was neck deep in the middle of all this stuff, I got all my divorce diaries over on my Patreon page. I got mental health vlogs. That's basically what you get if you go over to Patreon. Things that are really vulnerable. So yeah, check out Patreon if you want divorce diaries from years ago. I've got years and years of videos over there. Get access to that whole library and tons of mental health vlogs dealing with anxiety, depression, triggers, post-trauma issues, and panic attacks. Anyway, so here we go with the whole big story of how I remained a stay-at-home mom through a whole big crazy divorce. So let's start at the beginning. When I started this channel, I had a toddler, Tom, and a baby girl, Zizi, who are now, goodness gracious, 7 and 9 years old. And I lived in a big house that had a big mortgage, and it was really just in my dream neighborhood, dream house. And I was married. Marriage was not great. We actually also had a rental property in the city that we moved from that we had with a management company. It was fully rented the whole time. So that house also had a mortgage, but the renter was paying the mortgage. None of this was a good idea. So anyway, we had all that done, and it seemed like I was living the dream, got my babies and my houses and all that. But it was false. It wasn't real. It was built on a crumbling foundation. Eventually, my husband at the time did have himself an affair, which I thought was the biggest of my problems, but it was not. So he left. I was still in my big old house with my babies, my chickens, my animals. Now, I will tell y'all from the very beginning of that horrible relationship, I really did bring up that I did not believe in debt. And I was basically laughed at, oh, silly Azalea, you can't live life like that. That's not realistic. Debt is great, allows you to do things. And so I let a lot of myself wither. Not die all the way, but wither back. A lot of myself, my beliefs, my ideas, my confidence in my own intelligence really withered within that relationship. And I let myself be under rug swept. And fast forward, he leaves. I have a little meeting with him, talk about, custody, child support, dividing up our property. And nothing was really accomplished in that conversation. Nothing really came to light. But eventually it came to light that both the houses were in foreclosure and my ex-husband was facing bankruptcy. How did I, as a single mom, homeschooling, attachment parenting, what am I going to do? I'm in this house. I don't have an income. I've always advocated for women to keep a nest egg, some money of your own. Even if you're a stay-at-home mom, $5 from the grocery budget each week into a nest egg for emergency for yourself and your children. Well, I had decided I wanted to become a yoga teacher. I don't regret that, but that's where my nest egg went. I did have a nest egg. I did have money that would have saved us, would have got us out of that situation with the ex-husband, but I spent it all on my yoga teacher training. It was a very prestigious, awesome training. It seemed really destined that me and the yoga instructor were in the same place at the same time. I paid for part of my yoga training by doing social media for the yoga studio, and the rest was my nest egg. Oh Lordy. So here I am, no nest egg. Husband gone, in 2 houses, both facing foreclosure. I don't know what I'm going to do. This is what saved me. My name was on none of the mortgages, none of the loans. My name was on nothing. My name was on the deeds to the property. So I owned them, they were foreclosed, but since I didn't own the debt personally, I didn't I didn't face any consequences. So I was miraculously given a clean start. So, but here I am. I've got a homeschooled baby. I've got a baby with special needs. My daughter has special needs. Caring for her is like caring for 3 other children wrapped into one. And so I'm like, oh my God, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? I've got this huge, like 5-bedroom house full of stuff. I got a chicken coop. I got everything. And I'm like, so first of all, I eliminated, I would say a conservative estimate is 80% of my material possessions. They went to donations, tiny bit were sold. A lot of it went onto the curb. I extremely downsized those material possessions and then moved myself one SUV haul at a time into what I had left, into a storage unit and into my parents' semi-finished basement to live there in sort of an apartment type situation, not really all blended together, but I lived in my parents' basement with my 2 children and moved there. My parents gave me a place to live, a guarantee that no one was ever going to go hungry, and they paid for me to get a lawyer so that I could get some spousal support and, Lord knows, some child support. In the meantime, my car insurance, my cell phone bill, everything was tied into these shared accounts with the ex-husband, soon to be ex-husband. And so I was just hoping my insurance would keep being paid. I was just hoping that my phone would keep being paid. And I got myself, I had a job making $50 a week. That's how much money I was making for myself, $50 a week, going and teaching yoga. So once a week I went and I taught yoga, and I picked up groceries and got gas. And so in the basement of my parents' house, I had a table set up where we could eat, where I could homeschool my son. We had a little TV area. We had a bunk bed next to my bed. So we had a double bed, a bunk bed, a table, a little TV area with a sofa. We had our own bathroom, and the laundry room. My parents' laundry room became my kitchen. I had a refrigerator and a freezer full size, and then I had a toaster oven and a coffee maker and like my juicer and some other things that I lined up in the laundry room to be our bathroom, to be our kitchen. But I'll tell you where I wash the dishes. I wash the dishes in the bathroom downstairs. So I kept my own kind of dwelling there for free at my parents' house, and they helped me get the lawyer, and I was hanging on, hoping that my insurance and my cell phone bill would still be paid. So that's where I'm at. How did I survive as a single mom through this divorce? I didn't have my names on the debt, and help. I got so much help. I got help to get a lawyer and a place to live. However, my relationship with my mother is not awesome. It's extremely, extremely complicated, and it no longer became healthy or possible for me to continue staying in the basement. So I'm like, oh Lord, what am I gonna do? So at that point, middle of winter, dead of winter, I had taken my child to like their holiday party with a homeschool co-op. So I take the children, this is Christmas by the way, took the children, and I started feeling just terrible during, like actively in the middle of the holiday party. And I didn't know where we were going to sleep that night. I didn't know where we were going home to. So the kids fell asleep after it was nighttime. We had the Christmas party, and the kids fell asleep in that trusty old SUV. And I sat in a parking lot in the SUV thinking, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? Ended up calling my grandmother. And that night, in the middle of the night, moved us over to my grandmother's house to live in her guest room. So me and the 2 children slept in the guest room, and that's where we went to live. And eventually I got some child support and spousal support arranged, got the divorce on paper, got some visitation set so that there would be set times that I, did have the help with my daughter, and we were there. let me tell you, leading up to before I left my parents' basement, I actually lost childcare. My parents were watching my children one day a week. In that evening, they said they couldn't do it anymore, so I had to quit my only income. I was completely destitute. This is bottom of the barrel. So I did not have that income, you know, barely, I guess, money. Occasionally, my husband would like throw me a bone of like some money in a bank account. It was degrading, humiliating, terrible. He's obviously off with the mistress somewhere. And so here I am at my grandparents' house, and that's when things started to rebuild. Getting the spousal and child support. I got Medicaid. I got food stamps. Oh, guess what? The SUV broke down beyond repair while I was at my grandmother's house, and I ended up having to borrow her car. So guess what? I couldn't move out of her house until I got a car, because I would have been without transportation. So here I was. I have the only thing I took out of that marriage, only property I ended up after all the houses and rentals and everything, was one SUV. That's all I had to my name, and it broke beyond repair. And so I have no car. I'm stuck in the middle of the country at my grandmother's house, but you know, things are clicking. I'm getting the child support, I'm getting the spousal support, I'm getting my phone and, well, insurance for a non-existent vehicle in my own name under my own support that is due to me each month. And, you know, that's not really enough. So I get the food stamps, and I've got all of this. And so I'm doing it. I couldn't really go to work. A, my mental health was shot. B, I didn't know what to do with my son. I had no childcare, and it seemed really overwhelming to try to enroll him in public school in the middle of the year, but then I'd need full-time childcare for my daughter, and I had no job prospects. And the one day a week I did have a job, I lost my childcare for that. So it was a really trying time. And once again, what I had was help, my grandmother's help. And then when the SUV died, and I was like, oh my gosh, what am I gonna do? One of my friends started a GoFundMe for me to get a new car. And at that same time, I did come down. Y'all had the flu when I first moved into my grandparents' house, and I mean a bad old flu, like huge fever, like it was terrible. And then my daughter needed to have tonsils and adenoids removed and tubes put in her ears at the same time that my car broke down. My father had to give us a ride to get surgery. It was just terrible. And so I'm, you know, trying to give my little child her medicine. She wouldn't take it, you know, round the clock care for her post-surgery, no car. My friends started GoFundMe, and people donated a large portion of the car ended up buying, which was only like $1,100-$1,200, because this time I'm rebuilding right. No. So then I ended up buying a very old car, Tawanda, the art car. I brought joy into our life at this point. So we get to Wanda, she's like $1,100, $1,200. Couldn't have paid more than $1,300 for her. I had her for a couple of years. So I paid for that car free and clear. I had the support coming in, I had the Medicaid, I had the food stamps. And I went, after I got the car, I was able to leave the middle of the country at my grandmother's house, and we found a $550 rental in downtown Lynchburg, Virginia. Now, if you were to ask someone what is the worst street in Lynchburg, Virginia, they would have told you my street that I lived on. You know, prostitution, drugs, gun violence, you know, lots of drunks, lots of unsupervised children, but it worked, and I had a great bond with many people in that community. The apartment was filthy, disgusting. The house maybe should have been condemned. You know, the basement was taking water, the holes in the walls, eventually the roof started to leak. It was freezing. We could never get warm. In the winter, what I did so we could get warm is it was like open between the living room and the kitchen, and so I would take a comforter for a bed and nail it up over the entrance to the kitchen. So I just had the living room, which was the only room that kind of had decent windows. It had baseboard heat, but that didn't do nothing. And so I had a little space heater. So I nailed the comforter up so we'd just be in the living room, and I'd run the space heater and the wall heat. And that's where we all slept at night. All three of us would sleep in that living room. Like, I brought my daughter's mattress out and put it on the floor, and we all had blankets. And so we stayed warm by blanketing the living room, and we all slept in a pile. But it was fine. It was wonderful. We were in our own place. I was home with my children. I was starting to heal my mental health, healing through radical vulnerability. I talked a lot about that on my Instagram during those years. And I was able to eventually get back to yoga. The first time I tried to get back to working, to teaching yoga, after that hard period, I had a panic attack. I had a job at a gym. I went in to teach yoga. I had a panic attack and had to leave the building. That job was done for. But eventually I rebuilt back in the studio where I used to do yoga myself, and at a new yoga studio I started getting these jobs. I was able to have creative energy to pour into waycrunchy, to make a little money here, and I rebuilt. A year later, we moved out of the terrible neighborhood and the terrible apartment, even though I did love it anyway. We found another rental that we are in now that is $550 a month. And this one includes good oil heat in that $550 a month. So here we are. That's how I stayed. And we don't have food stamps anymore. We do still have Medicaid. And that, y'all, is how I did it. I no longer receive spousal support. I still receive child support. I do my yoga, I do my waycrunchy, and here I am. And that is the financial story of how I survived a divorce and stayed a stay-at-home mom predominantly the entire time. I love you guys. Thanks for all the new followers. I talk a lot about frugal stuff because I haven't had a lot of money. And I talk a lot about building on a good foundation without debt and doing smart spending. Bye, y'all. Let me know if you have any questions. Let me know. Hit me up.